On the morning of October 25th, 1944, a sailor from Oklahoma with 2 fingers missing and blood soaking his uniform turned his little destroyer toward the largest battleship ever built. He did it on purpose. He did it knowing he would not come home. His name was Ernest Evans, and in the next 3 hours, he and 13,000 other American sailors would fight a battle the United States Navy was never supposed to survive. This is the story of the Battle off Samar. The day 6,000 tons stood against 72,000 tons and won. It begins on the flight deck of a small escort carrier called USS St. Lo at 6:47 in the morning. The sea lies flat and gray under a bruised dawn sky. Rain squalls drift on the horizon. The air smells of salt and aviation fuel. A lookout raises his binoculars. He is scanning north, out of habit, out of duty. The war has moved past this stretch of water. The invasion of Leyte is already underway. Somewhere to the south, thousands of American troops are wading onto beaches. His task group, Taffy Three, is here to fly cover, drop depth charges on submarines, and shepherd the landings. That is all. Then he sees them. Thin vertical shapes rising from the sea. Not smokestacks, not the masts of friendly ships. Something taller, something wrong. Layer upon layer of platforms and antennas stacked into the sky like a pagoda. He knows that silhouette from recognition manuals. Every American sailor in the Pacific knows it. Japanese battleship, superstructure. The time is 6:47 in the morning. For the next 3 hours, the men of Taffy Three will fight a battle they cannot possibly win against an enemy that should not possibly be there. To understand how the world's most powerful battleship came within gun range of 6 thin-skinned escort carriers, we must go back 3 days to a stretch of dark water in the Palawan Passage. October 23rd. 2 American submarines, USS Darter and USS Dace, lie in wait on the surface in the pre-dawn darkness. Their commanders, David McClintock and Bladden Claggett, both in their 30s, have been tracking radar contacts through the night. The blips are moving in formation. Warships, a lot of them. At dawn they see it. A Japanese fleet, over 30 warships strong, steaming north in 2 long columns. Heavy cruisers, battleships. And at the head of the eastern column, a massive vessel flying the flag of a fleet commander. That vessel is the heavy cruiser Atago, and on her bridge stands Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, 55 years old, career officer, a man who has already seen defeats at Midway and the Solomons, and who now carries the last true offensive of the Imperial Japanese Navy on his shoulders. The plan is called Shogo-1, Victory Operation 1. 4 separate Japanese fleets are to converge on the American landings at Leyte from different directions. One fleet, commanded by Admiral Ozawa, will sail from the north with empty aircraft carriers, offering itself as bait. The Americans, it is hoped, will chase the carriers north. And while they do, Kurita's center force, the strongest surface fleet Japan has left, will slip through the San Bernardino Strait and fall upon the defenseless troop transports in Leyte Gulf. That is the plan. Slaughter the landing force. Break the American offensive by the Empire time. Kurita does not know that 2 submarines are watching him. McClintock lines up his shot. 6 torpedoes leap from Darter's bow tubes. In the dark water, they streak toward the flagship. The first torpedo strikes Otago at 5:32 in the morning. Then a second, then a third, then a fourth. 4 torpedoes in a single salvo. Into a heavy cruiser, Otago heaves. Fire erupts along her length. Ammunition begins to cook off. Within 18 minutes, she is gone. 360 of her crew go with her. Kurita is thrown from the bridge into the sea. He surfaces in a slick of oil, coughing in the pre-dawn darkness. His personal staff, his charts, his communications equipment, most of it is gone. He is dragged, choking, aboard the destroyer Kishinami. His uniform is soaked. His face is streaked with black fuel oil. He has not slept properly in days. Nearby, USS Dace fires her own torpedoes. The heavy cruiser Maya takes 4 hits, breaks in half, and sinks within minutes. Over 300 men are lost with her. A third cruiser, Takao, is left crippled and limping. In one attack, in the space of minutes, Kurita has lost 3 heavy cruisers. He has been in the water. He has lost his flagship, his flag captain, and most of his staff, and he still has to command the largest surface operation Japan will ever attempt. Later that morning, wet, exhausted, humiliated, he transfers his flag to a vessel that is waiting on the horizon, a vessel that rises from the sea like a floating fortress, 860 feet long, 72,000 tons at full load, 9 guns, 18 inches across, each capable of hurling a shell the weight of a small car over 25 miles. The battleship Yamato, the largest, most heavily armored warship ever built. Kurita climbs aboard in a borrowed uniform. He is 55 years old and he has just failed to drown. He has 48 hours to lead this fleet through a narrow strait and into the guns of the United States Navy. The next day, the 24th, brings a new nightmare. American carrier planes find the center force in the Sibuyan Sea. Wave after wave of Hellcats and Helldivers and Avengers roar down out of the clouds. The Japanese fleet twists and turns, throwing up a wall of anti-aircraft fire. Kurita has no air cover of his own. Japan's carrier pilots have been dead or dying since Midway 2 years ago. The planes come for Musashi first, Yamato's sister ship, just as large, just as heavily armored, just as proud. They hit her with bombs. They hit her with torpedoes. They keep coming and they keep hitting. Musashi absorbs blow after blow, still steaming, still shooting. 19 torpedo hits, 17 bomb hits, the greatest concentration of ordnance ever placed on a single ship. At 7:35 in the evening, she rolls slowly onto her side. Her bow lifts into the air. Then she is gone. 1,023 men go down with her. Kurita, on Yamato's bridge, watches his sister's ship die. And he turns his fleet around. He heads west, away from the target. The American pilots, exhausted, elated, radio back to their carriers. Center force is retreating. Center force has been beaten. Center force is no longer a threat. The message climbs the chain of command and reaches Admiral William Halsey, 61 years old, blunt, aggressive, beloved by the American press for his bulldog jaw and his fighting words. Halsey commands the Third Fleet, 6 fast battleships, fleet aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, the most powerful naval force in the world. Halsey reads the reports. Center force beaten, Kurita retreating, and to the north, brand new intelligence. Ozawa's carrier fleet spotted at last, sailing down from the home islands. The carriers. Halsey has been hunting Japanese carriers for 2 years, since Midway, since Santa Cruz. The chance to finish them off, to sink every last flat-topped ship in the Imperial Navy, is a chance he has waited his entire war for. He gives the order. Every ship of the Third Fleet, every battleship, every cruiser, every destroyer, every aircraft carrier turns north. The San Bernardino Strait, the narrow gate through which Kurita must pass to reach Leyte, is left completely unguarded. Halsey believes Kurita is retreating. Halsey is wrong. The moment the sky grows dark, Kurita turns his ships around again and steams east. His route lies through the San Bernardino Strait. He expects a battle there. He expects American battleships waiting in ambush. He expects to lose Yamato in the passage. He is prepared for it. He is prepared to die there. Instead, at 3 in the morning on October 25th, his fleet slips through the strait without seeing a single American ship. Not a destroyer, not a picket, not a flare. The gate is open, and no one is home. South of him, at that exact same hour, another battle is ending. In the Surigao Strait, in the darkness, Admiral Jesse Oldendorf has ambushed the southern Japanese force under Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura. Oldendorf lines his old battleships, several of them raised from the mud of Pearl Harbor, across the exit of the strait. As Nishimura's column steams north, Oldendorf crosses the T, the classical dream of every naval officer since the age of sail. Every American gun bears on the leading Japanese ship. Only the forward Japanese guns can reply. The battleship Fuso is torn apart. The battleship Yamashiro is hammered into a burning wreck. Admiral Nishimura goes down with his flagship. The southern arm of Shogo, one dies in the darkness before the sun ever rises. It is the last battleship versus battleship gun duel in the history of the world, and it means nothing for what is about to happen off Samar. Because at that same hour, in that same darkness, the American picket line to the north still believes the San Bernardino Strait is being watched by Halsey's battleships. It is not. Kurita is out. Yamato is out. 4 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 11 destroyers, all of them steaming southeast at 20 knots. All of them running straight down the coast of Samar, straight toward the beaches of Leyte, straight toward the transports full of American soldiers and Marines. Directly in their path, at first light, sit the 6 little escort carriers of Taffy Three. The men on those carriers do not know what is coming. They are cooking breakfast. They are launching morning patrols to hunt submarines. Their aircraft are armed for ground support and anti-submarine work. Depth charges, fragmentation bombs, general purpose weapons, almost nothing designed to penetrate the armored deck of a battleship. On the destroyer U.S. Johnston, one of just 3 destroyers in the entire task unit, Commander Ernest Evans is up early. He is 36 years old, part Cherokee, part Muscogee Creek from Pawnee, Oklahoma. He wears the same Navy uniform as every other officer in the fleet, but the men on his ship know he is different. They know because they were there on the day Johnston was commissioned, October 27th, 1943. On that day, standing on the deck of a brand new destroyer, in front of a crew of young men who had never seen combat, Evans had raised his voice and said, plainly, "This is going to be a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way. Anyone who does not want to go along had better get off right now." Nobody got off. The men who serve under him call him the chief behind his back. Not always with warmth. He is a hard officer. He drills them constantly. He does not smile easily. But they know, and he knows, that when the moment comes, USS Johnston will not run. The moment is now 4 minutes away. At 6:43, radar operators on the American carriers register unidentified surface contacts to the north. It is dismissed as a friendly force, Halsey's ships, perhaps. At 6:47, a lookout on USS St. Low sees the pagoda masts. At 6:48, anti-aircraft shells begin to burst in colored patterns over the American formation. Purple, pink, yellow, green. Japanese battleships load dye markers in their shells so that each gunnery officer can spot his own splashes. The American sailors have never seen anything like it. The colors are beautiful for a moment in the gray morning light. Then the first salvo lands in the water beside Fanshawe Bay, and the geysers rise higher than her mast. On the flag bridge of Fanshawe Bay, Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague, 48 years old, quiet-voiced, methodical, stares north through his binoculars and sees what no American admiral has ever seen before. Not since the war began. A Japanese battle fleet in open water at gun range with nothing between it and the beach except him. He does not have time to be afraid. He gives 3 orders in the span of 1 minute. Turn east, launch every aircraft, make smoke. And then, into the radio, in the clear, without code, he calls for help. He knows help is not coming in time. On USS Johnston, Ernest Evans stands on his own bridge and watches the same silhouettes come over the horizon. He does not wait for orders. He picks up the intercom and speaks to his crew for what many of them will remember as the last time. A large Japanese fleet has been contacted. They are 15 miles away and headed in our direction. We are going to attack. Then he rings up flank speed, 30 knots, and turns the bow of his little destroyer directly toward the guns of the largest battleship ever built. Behind him, in the fading dark, the rest of Taffy Three begins to run. Ahead of him, the sea is beginning to boil with the fall of 18-inch shells. The battle off Samar is about to begin. The sea turns to white water. Shells the size of automobiles fall around the escort carriers, throwing up columns of green and pink and yellow that climb higher than the flight decks. The dye is meant to help Japanese gunners walk their fire onto the target. It is working. Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague watches from the flag bridge of Fanshawe Bay. His 6 little carriers can make 18 knots downhill with a following wind. The Japanese battleships behind him can make 30. The gap is closing by the minute. He turns his ships east into the wind and orders every aircraft off the decks. Everyone. Wildcats with belted machine gun ammunition. Avengers loaded with depth charges, meant for submarines. Torpedo bombers with no torpedoes at all. Some of them carry only fragmentation bombs. Some carry nothing. It does not matter. Sprague has decided. If a plane can fly, it flies. If it cannot shoot, it dives anyway. He then does something no American admiral has done in this war. He orders his 3 destroyers, his 3 tiny destroyer escorts, and every plane in the sky to attack the largest surface fleet Japan has left. 6,000 tons against 72,000 tons. Robert Copeland stands on the bridge of the destroyer escort USS Samuel B. Roberts, 34 years old, a reservist, a lawyer from Tacoma, Washington, before the war. His ship is not a warship in any real sense. She is a small hull built quickly to hunt submarines. Her main guns are 2 5-inch mounts. Her armor is thin enough that a rifle round could puncture it in places. He looks out at what is coming toward him. Yamato, Nagato, Kongo, Haruna, 4 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, destroyers beyond counting. He picks up the intercom. His voice is calm. This will be a fight against overwhelming odds, from which survival cannot be expected. We will do what damage we can. Then he rings up flank speed and turns north, straight into the Japanese line. Beside him, USS Johnston is already there. Ernest Evans has not waited for permission. Johnston is running at 30 knots through the smoke, her 5-inch guns already firing. The little destroyer's shells cannot penetrate the armor of a heavy cruiser, let alone a battleship. Evans knows this. He is not firing to sink anyone. He is firing to close the range for what comes next. Torpedoes. At 10,000 yards, Johnston swings hard to port, exposing her side, and empties all 10 of her torpedo tubes at the Japanese heavy cruiser, Kumano. The wakes streak across the gray water. Aboard USS Johnston, a young lieutenant named Robert Hagen is running the main battery from the fire control station high above the bridge. He is 26 years old, from Corpus Christi, Texas. He will survive this day. Years later, he will write about what he saw and about what he felt, and he will describe it as fighting an armored knight with a pea shooter. He watches the torpedo tracks reach out toward the Japanese cruiser. One of them hits. Kumano's bow, over 10,000 tons of ship, is torn open. She staggers out of formation, trailing oil, unable to keep up. She is out of the battle. Ernest Evans, on the bridge of a little destroyer, has just knocked a Japanese heavy cruiser out of the battle. The reply comes seconds later. 3 14-inch shells from the battleship Congo strike USS Johnston. In the same instant, the blasts tear through her thin skin as if she were made of paper. The bridge is shattered. Half the ship's forward power is gone. 3 6-inch shells hit her superstructure a moment later. Ernest Evans is thrown to the deck. 2 fingers on his left hand are gone. His chest is bleeding. His neck is bleeding. His officer's cap is nowhere to be found. He climbs to his feet, tears the sleeve off his own uniform, and wraps his ruined hand. He does not leave the ship. He does not go to sick bay. He walks aft through the smoke to the emergency steering station on the fantail and begins shouting orders down a brass voice tube by hand. The little destroyer keeps fighting. Behind Johnston, Samuel B. Roberts closes on the Japanese heavy cruiser Chokai. Copeland orders his gunners to fire as fast as the barrels will bear it. Over the next hour, that one ship, that one little destroyer escort, will fire more than 600 rounds from her 2 5-inch guns. She will fire until her barrels glow orange. She will fire until the paint burns off. She will fire until the powder in the ready racks is gone, and men are hand-carrying shells up from the magazines. She launches her 3 torpedoes at Chokai. At least one strikes home. In the sky above, the pilots of Taffy Three do what Sprague has ordered. They attack. And when their bombs are gone, they attack again. And when their machine guns are empty, they still attack. Wildcats make dry runs, roaring down over Japanese battleships, with nothing left to fire, forcing the great ships to twist and turn and lose their aim. Avengers drop depth charges on cruisers, one pilot, out of bombs, out of ammunition, drops an empty beer bottle. Another simply flies in circles above a Japanese battleship, drawing fire away from his friends in the water. The Japanese officers on those bridges look up at these swarming little planes and see something they do not understand. They see aircraft that will not stop coming. They see destroyers charging battleships. They see carriers that refuse to run. And they begin to think, quietly, that these cannot be escort carriers. These must be Halsey's fleet carriers. These must be the main body of the American Third Fleet. The mistake will save hundreds of American lives. Aboard Yamato, Kurita looks out at the sea and sees ships he cannot identify clearly through the smoke and rain squalls. He sees planes he cannot count. He does not know that he is facing the smallest, thinnest force in the American Navy. He believes he is facing the greatest one. The confusion is the only shield Taffy Three has. Now come the shells that should have killed them all. Japanese battleship rounds are designed for one purpose: punching through the belt armor of enemy battleships. They are hardened. They are fused to explode deep inside a heavily armored hull. They strike the escort carriers of Taffy Three and pass straight through. A shell smashes into the flight deck of USS White Plains, punches down through empty crew spaces, and exits the hull below the waterline without detonating. Another rips through Kalinin Bay from side to side, in one thin plate and out the other, leaving two clean holes and no explosion. Fanshawe Bay is hit 6 times. 4 of the shells failed to explode. Japanese ammunition, designed to sink battleships, is too good to kill the little carriers it is hitting. The fuses need armor to arm them. The escort carriers do not have any. But one ship's luck runs out. USS Gambier Bay, at the rear of the American formation, is caught by the heavy cruiser Chikuma at close range. 8-inch shells begin to walk across her flight deck. Fires break out below. Her engine room is flooded. Her speed drops. She falls behind. She becomes the first, and to this day, the only, American aircraft carrier in history to be sunk by surface gunfire. Her crew abandons ship into a sea already scattered with oil and wreckage, and the survivors of Johnston, Hull, and Samuel B. Roberts. In the water, sharks are already gathering. Far to the north, as the battle enters its 3rd hour, Admiral William Halsey receives a message. The wording of it will haunt him for the rest of his life. The message was sent from Admiral Chester Nimitz at Pearl Harbor. Nimitz wants to know where Halsey's battleships are. Where is Task Force 34, the fast battleship group that was supposed to guard the San Bernardino Strait? He phrases the question in urgent code, and, to fool Japanese cryptographers, his radio operators pad the message at both ends with meaningless words. The message goes out. It reads, in its full padded form, Turkey trots to water, followed by the real question, followed by the words, the world wanders. Halsey's radiomen strip out the front padding. They leave the back. The signal handed to Halsey reads, where is, repeat, where is Task Force 34? The world wanders. He reads it standing on the flag bridge of the New Jersey. He reads it as an insult, as a public rebuke from the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet. His face turns dark red. He tears his cap from his head, throws it on the deck, and, in front of his staff officers, begins to cry with rage. For 1 full hour, he does nothing. Then, finally, he turns his battleships around and orders them south at full speed. They are more than 300 miles away. They cannot possibly arrive in time. Off Samar, USS Johnston is burning from bow to stern. Ernest Evans, still bleeding, still standing, still shouting, orders down a voice tube by hand, keeps her in the fight for 2 more hours. Samuel B. Roberts, hit again and again, keeps firing until her guns can no longer turn. Hull takes 40 hits. Every one of them is answered. The battle has been going on for 2 hours. The American ships are almost out of ammunition. They are almost out of ships. And out on the horizon, Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita is about to make the decision that no historian has ever fully explained. At 9:11 in the morning, on the bridge of the battleship Yamato, Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita raises his hand. He gives an order that will never be fully explained. Break off. Turn north. Regroup. The Japanese ships in position to steam straight into Leyte Gulf and slaughter the transports lying there, turn away from the beach. They turn away from victory. On his bridge, Kurita's officers stare at him. Some of them will spend the rest of their lives asking why. After the war, American interrogators will ask him. He will give 3 answers, and none of them will feel complete. He will say his intelligence told him another American carrier force was closing from the north. It was not. There was no such force within reach. He will say he believed he had already sunk several American fleet carriers. He had not. He had sunk 1 small escort carrier and damaged others. He will say his own formation was scattered, his crews exhausted, his fuel low. All of that was true. Huh? He will not say what some of his own officers came to believe. That, standing on the bridge of the world's largest battleship, looking at little destroyers charging his guns, at pilots making empty runs with nothing left to fire, at a fleet that would not run and would not die, he lost his nerve. Kurita lived until 1977. He was 90 years old when he passed. He never spoke publicly of that morning again. Off Samar, the American sailors do not know he has turned away. For long minutes, they watch the Japanese silhouettes on the horizon and wait for the next salvo. It does not come. The gunfire slackens. The great gray shapes grow smaller. And then, slowly, unbelievably, they are gone. On USS Johnston, the order to abandon ship comes at 9:45. Ernest Evans, still on his feet, still bleeding from wounds he has ignored for 3 hours, sees his men into the water. He is last down the side. Survivors will remember seeing him in the sea, holding on to floating wreckage, his uniform in ribbons, his left hand a bloody stump. That is the last time anyone sees him. His body is never recovered. He was 36 years old. He left behind a wife and a son. He is awarded the Medal of Honor. He becomes the first Native American ever to receive the Medal of Honor in the United States Navy. Barely 2 hours later, still that same morning, something new happens. Something that will define the last 10 months of the Pacific War. To the south at Task Unit Taffy 1, a formation of Japanese aircraft appears in the sky. They are led by a naval aviator named U.S Siki. They are not carrying bombs to drop. They are the bombs. They are the first organized kamikaze attack in history. 5 aircraft dive on the escort carriers. One of them, most likely piloted by Seki himself, plunges through the flight deck of USS St. Lo. The same St. Lo whose lookout that same morning was the first American to see the pagoda masts on the horizon. Fire races through her hangar deck. Explosions rip her open from within. In under 30 minutes, she rolls over and sinks. She becomes the first American warship in history to be sunk by a suicide attack. The men of Taffy Three have survived the battleships. They will spend the rest of the war trying to survive what comes next. The sea off Samar is scattered with wreckage and men. 50 hours. That is how long many of them spend in the water. 50 hours before rescue arrives. The delay is not deliberate. It is a coordinate error. A rescue ship is sent to the wrong location. The men in the water do not know this. They only know that the sun is rising for the second time, and no one has come. They cling to floater nets and pieces of broken ships. Some of them slip under from exhaustion. Some of them die of their wounds. Some of them are pulled down by the sharks, which have been feeding for 2 days now. By the time the destroyers arrive to pick them up, many of the men who fought so hard to stay alive have quietly stopped fighting. The numbers, when they are tallied, are these. Taffy Three lost the destroyer. Hull, the destroyer USS Johnston. The destroyer escort Samuel B. Roberts, the escort carrier Gambier Bay, and later the escort carrier St. Lo. 1,161 American sailors and airmen were killed. 913 were wounded. The Japanese Center Force, which came to destroy the American beachhead, lost 3 heavy cruisers off Samar. Chokai, Chikuma, Suzuya, all fatally damaged by American aircraft and torpedoes, some finished off by their own escorts. The battle off Samar was over in 2 hours and 30 minutes. The Battle of Leyte Gulf, of which Samar was only one part, was the largest naval battle in human history. When it ended, on October 26th, the Imperial Japanese Navy had ceased to exist as a strategic offensive force. It would fight on. It would send its ships out, one by one, in doomed missions, in kamikaze runs, but it would never again gather a fleet large enough to threaten American operations in the Pacific. 10 more months of war lay ahead, the bloodiest 10 months of the entire Pacific campaign. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, the firebombings, the atomic bombs. But at Samar, on a gray October morning in 1944, Something had ended. Admiral William Halsey lived to be 76. He was promoted to Fleet Admiral, the 5-star rank. He never wrote in his memoirs about the tears on the bridge of the New Jersey. He mentioned the padded signal only in passing. He carried what happened at San Bernardino Strait for the rest of his life. Every officer who served under him knew he carried it. No one who cared about him ever raised it. Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague, who had turned his 6 escort carriers into the guns of Yamato and lived, went home after the war. He commanded a naval air station. He retired quietly to San Diego. He died in 1955. He was 59 years old. Robert Copeland, the lawyer from Tacoma, who had told his crew that survival could not be expected, went back to being a lawyer. He served in the Naval Reserve. He rose to the rank of Rear Admiral. He passed away in 1973. Lieutenant Robert Hagen, who had fought the guns of USS Johnston as long as they could turn, survived the water. He lived a full life. He wrote about that morning. He spoke about it when asked. He died in 2002 at the age of 84. Takeo Kurita went home to Japan. He taught at the Naval Academy after the war. He gave few interviews. He raised his family. He walked in his garden. He carried whatever it was that he carried from the bridge of Yamato that morning into a very long old age. And Ernest Evans, part Cherokee, part Muskogee Creek, from Pawnee, Oklahoma, remained in the sea off Samar. For 75 years, no one knew exactly where he lay. Then, in the spring of 2021, an expedition led by explorer Victor Vescovo confirmed the wreck of USS Johnston, resting upright on the seafloor at a depth of 21,180 feet, nearly 4 miles down. It was the deepest shipwreck ever surveyed by human beings. 3 years later, in June 2022, they found Samuel B. Roberts. She lies at 22,621 feet, even deeper, even farther from the light. The little ships that stood their ground. Down there, in a darkness that no sunlight has ever reached, they are still on station, still bow forward, still pointed at the enemy. Above them, the sea off Samar is quiet now, a working ocean. Fishing boats pass over it. Cargo ships, the Philippines that were fought over so bitterly, are independent and free. But if you know where to look on the chart, if you know what happened there on the morning of October 25th, 1944, you will understand something that the men who were there understood without needing to say it out loud. Sometimes the men who should not have won do. Sometimes a fight that cannot be survived is. And sometimes, on a gray morning at the edge of the world, a Cherokee sailor from Oklahoma with 2 fingers missing and his blood in the sea, yet turns his little destroyer toward the guns of the largest battleship ever built and changes what men believe is possible. That is the story of the Battle off Samar. They were the smallest ships in the smallest force in the largest naval battle ever fought. And they held the line.